computer. All right, is there any way to report this to the cloud as well? Oh well. Okay, well, hello everyone. Welcome to our WholeBeing Journey, and this is the little get together, a platform where us MA in happiness study, first ever MA in happiness study, and hopefully we will get more students to join us as well. But this is a great way for us to get to know each other because even though we got to know each other during the class and the little breakaway discussion, but we didn't really get to know each other at a deeper level. So we thought that this is an amazing way to really get to know each other. And I have learned so much from everyone in the past couple of months, and I hope you will get great value from this little gathering that we have. And today we have a very special guest, Gina. And I read through her background a little bit, and it is very exciting. Her journey began with a challenging childhood marked by a frequent move, parent separation, and a financial struggle. But despite all of that, Gina's determination helped her pursue her education on a BS in business marketing and sociology from Marist College. And to support herself, she worked as a special education tutor, embodying the grit and perseverance that would define her career. And there are many more interesting facts that we are going to explore and discover today. So I am super excited to introduce you to Gina Giacona. And Gina, would you like to say hi to everyone before I start my first question?
Yeah,
All
thank
right.
you. Hi, everybody. I'm so glad I'm here with you, Ben, and I really appreciate what you and Jasmine have put together. I think it really has been wonderful. I've only watched two of my other classmates, but I found them so interesting. And throughout the program, I know with Ben and Jasmine, we all realized the resources and the amazing people we were studying with. And so this kind of a program is just wonderful for us to get to know each other better. So I really appreciate your efforts and kudos to coming up with a great idea.
Excellent. And we appreciate you too and everyone in this journey. The happiness revolution is a very exciting one because we are leading that movement to help people find true peace and happiness. And I really believe that we are going to make the world a better place, right? It is already good, but we will make it even better. And in this program, we will get to know you much better, from how you were your childhood, but I want to start with the middle of the journey because we got to know each other through the MA in Happiness Study program, first ever. So I will start there, and then we will circle back to your earlier journey.
Sure.
And a question that I really want to ask everyone that I have met in the MA program is that, like, how did you hear about the program? Do you know how prior to the program? And what is that calling that helped you decide to take the program? Because I know it's a big commitment. So how did you hear about the program?
Thank you. So my journey began literally old school, reading the newspaper in literal newspaper. And I've been looking over the last probably, I want to say 5 years, for more intellectual stimulation. So I was reading voraciously and trying to figure out what my next stage was going to be as an empty nester. And I knew that something was missing. I was missing something. And the big piece of it, as we know with SPIRE elements for happiness, one of them was being intellectually stimulated. I would have conversations with people and read books, but it just wasn't enough. And I had been let go from my job during COVID. And coming out of that time period where I think I saw, we all saw a lot of people struggling, whether it be mental illness or isolation or marital problems. There just seemed to be a lot that came to a head during COVID. And I read this article about this new, program, this new master's program. I have a master's in education, and my hope had always been to go back and get a doctorate. And that was really primarily what was in my mind, the next step, a doctorate. But then I read this and learned about Tal a little bit, and then I put it aside and probably didn't look at it for another month or two. And then it just started, it was always there. It was like in my subconscious. I was like, okay, is this something I can do? Can I write a research paper now? I have been out of school 30 years. And it just always came back to it. And then finally, the big thing was I mentioned it to somebody else. And for me, that's how I solidify when I put it out there to the world and I solidify that I've said it, then I know from my own personality, I've got to do it. So once I shared it with somebody and shared it with somebody else, then I was like, okay, I'm down this road. And I'll tell you, I was scared. I was scared primarily because of the technology. I really wasn't sure if I could do this 100% remote. And I was scared up until that first day, but it was amazing. I learned a lot. It was fine. You can do things you don't even realize you can do by just persevering and asking questions. And I loved it. And as you know, Ben, it's one of the most fabulous experiences of my life. I mean, I highly recommend it.
Yep, that is amazing. I just want to make sure that I understand this correctly. You had never heard of Tao prior to the program. You just read it from the newspaper and then you do further research.
No, I mentioned it, I think, to one of my girlfriends, and she had read his book. She said, I think I know that name. And I said, I haven't read his book. I mean, I jumped in, really just jumped in. I really didn't know that much. And that was another part of my fear was, I don't know if you knew a lot with the program, but I honestly didn't know what was going to be expected of me. I didn't know how much time it was going to take, but I was just like, I want this. I want to try it. Hey, one class I can start. If I don't like it, no one's forcing me to finish. So I figured I might as well try. And to me, I never looked back. I never regretted it. It was such a positive experience. And then to get to know Tal and the coursework was just amazing. So I don't think I've shut up since then. And like you, I love Tal and all his
Mhm.
message, and the whole happiness revolution is so positive.
Awesome. So during your research on happiness study in Dr. Tao and Shahar, what is the tipping point for you? Like what information that you got about Dr. Tao and Shahar that helped you make that decision of signing up and start the program?
I have to say I was very impressed with him teaching at Harvard. That was a buzzword and a commitment that I felt like he was committed to his message. The fact that he had taught for so many years, the fact that he had written books, the fact that he was research based. I really loved the idea that this wasn't just your regular self-help kind of a thing. And as my past is in teaching, I've watched a lot of children struggle with a lot of the basic emotions that he talks about. And so it resonated with me, the whole spire elements of happiness that he talks about, because they're all so important. And I think sometimes people leave that out. And it may not be as important, each piece of it for every one of us as individual, but it is so important to have all those different aspects in your life. So that resonated with me as well, that his message was a clear one and something that whether you're a child or 90, you're going to be able to utilize it. So that was a lot of what I was really impressed by.
Absolutely amazing. And everyone, today is all about Gina. So if you have any question, feel free to write it on the chat or raise your hand because I know this we go into explore a lot of different topics. And if you have questions, feel free to jump in, and I will call on you to interact. And Gina, I know today is all about you, but as soon as we talk about Tao, I would like to share like my story as well because I first heard of Tao back in 2007, I believe, and it was through an online course called Psychology of Leadership. So my friend sent me that video. I don't know if it was legal, but Dr. Tao and Shao were teaching, and somehow I got my hands on the video, and I thought it was the most amazing course ever. And I didn't even know his name. I just came over from Vietnam for 3 to 4 years, and all of us, I think all of us who come from, out of state, we have this thing about name that we just can't really remember, or at least that was how it was for me. But the material that Tao taught from the psychology 1508, psychology of leadership, was very memorizing because he hit all of the important point and he implemented the research. And the fact that he was teaching at Harvard, one of the most pristine school, and I know that all of the leaders and the children of influential people go there and they are learning from Tao on leadership, and everything was just so beautiful. And it was my dream to study under Tao. I wasn't be able to afford like going to Harvard and all of that. So I gave up on my dream. And 2022, I heard of the program. Didn't even recognize Tao when I first heard the program. I did more research and I connected the dot, and I was like, oh, it is the most famous professor from Harvard that I dream of studying under, and I didn't have the opportunity to. So I was like, I have got to sign up because back then it was only 17,700, cheaper than my high school tuition because when I came over here, I had to go to a private school. So it was a no-brainer to me. And Dr. Tao, he doesn't talk much about his accomplishment, but I love to brag about his accomplishment. And whatever you can see is a fraction of what he could do. And I feel like there are so much that we can learn from Tao. So definitely sign up for his PhD and all the master class when we have the opportunity to. And the next question, actually, Chanel has a question, so I'll go ahead and prioritize that. Chanel is asking, Gina, you are involved in so many important activities and activity that require a lot of time. How do you protect yourself from burnout and ensure you remain balanced?
Good question, right? Over the years, it has changed the way that I deal with trying to balance certain things. And I'm very fortunate right now because I'm in a position, like I said, that I'm an empty nester. I know Chanel has children, and that's very challenging. So I focused when I was raising my children more on the activities that fed my soul that had to do with them, whether it was the PTA president thing or the Girl Scout leader and that sort of thing. And now, I feel, first of all, I've learned to set some real serious boundaries with people. I know how to say no sometimes now, and I didn't used to. And that's been really important for me. And I've put myself first a lot more than I used to. And I used to feel very guilty about that. And now I don't, because now I understand that I'm a better mom and a better friend and a better wife when I take care of myself and do the things that feed my soul. So I try to balance it with, I have to say, when I was in the program, I found I did find it very challenging to do the physical exercises that I usually wanted to do. I was stimulating my brain more. Now I find, now that we're done with and graduated, I'm doing a little more of the physical exercise kind of outlet for myself, as well as promising that I'm going to read a lot of the books that we all talked about during the program. I mean, the amount of books that I want to read are just, overwhelming. But so reading is a big hobby of mine. Exercise is a big hobby of mine. And I'm very into music. I love to go to concerts and spend time with my friends and my family. So, just this weekend, I went to 2 concerts, and they really make me feel a connection with the lyrics and the artist and my friends. And so that's how I balance it. And I'm very fortunate right now. I'm not working outside the home. I'm taking a break after graduation. So that's also a reason that I'm able to balance a lot, given that I'm not working right now. So.
I love that.
out of the home, not working.
Yep. I love that. Gotta take care of ourselves so we can take care of other. Casey asked with concerts, you know.
Right.
Well, I'm sure there's a lot of different concerts that you go to, and I wish I can do the same. You know, I have a little baby, almost
Yeah,
10
that
months
changes a
old.
lot of
So,
things, right, Ben?
yep,
That's
I enjoy every moment though,
yeah,
I learned to take care of myself too, Gina, because I think everyone can relate it to this because the truth about our nature is that we want to take care of others, right? Our family, our friends, and then we want to do good for the world. But sometimes we forget to take care of ourselves. So one of the big lessons that I have learned from the course is that you have to be selfful instead of selfish or take care of other people too much. Um, well, great. Teresa said that she loved music too, and she's asked, "What type of music do you enjoy?"
I would say my genre is probably, I would think it's kind of called rock pop. Um, Kelly Clarkson. I just went to go say Hootie and the Blowfish the other night. I saw Imagine Dragons Sunday night. A pretty big range, I would say. It was such a nice concert with Imagine Dragons. It was all families with children. It was so much fun and lots of funfetti and stuff. I love people with positive lyrics, like Jason Mraz is one of my favorite people. I like to follow him. I love Train. I love the Goo Goo Dolls. I really like lyrics to speak to me. So a lot of the people that I choose, I feel like are people that I can relate to with their lyrics. I love Alanis Morissette. Um, uh, it's a pretty big range, I would say.
Mm.
I love jazz and I love classical as well. So, you know, my church used to give concerts with classical music, and my husband and I used to go to see them. Um, so yeah, a pretty big variety. I love it.
Yeah, music is so powerful, and that's remind me of one of the lessons that Tao taught. He said that in the past, you know, in order to enjoy music, you have to be king, you have to be like somebody that is very
Right.
wealthy and powerful because it's all live music. And now we get to enjoy it with little to no cost. And I think the fact that you are enjoying music, it has got to do something with, you know, your ancestor, your DNA or something. And I have high respect for those who can enjoy art and make art. So very
I'm sure
nice.
Chanel and you and Teresa can relate. I can't listen to Whitney Houston anymore without thinking of Tall. I mean, because that's one of his favorites. So when I listen to her, I think of Tall. I mean, he really instilled in us his love of music as well, which was so nice. For those of you who weren't in the program, he would start every weekly class with music, and most of the music, whether it was a Broadway show music or Whitney Houston, the lyrics are powerful and they really move us. I also suffer from tinnitus and a ringing in my ear, and I find when I listen to music, that all goes away. I don't hear the ringing, and my body, my mind can relax. So it's very calming for me.
Hmm. I think there's a connection between the body, the mind, and even like your higher self, if we want to go there, you know. But before we go further, I do want to learn more about your background and your childhood because you provided a pretty detailed background. But I would definitely want to learn more because I think what we experienced in the past shape who we are today. So can you share with us about your challenging childhood and how that shaped your outlook on life and your career choices?
Sure. When I say challenging, it was challenging because I was a shy child and it was difficult moving a lot. And so the first time I moved, I was in first grade, then I moved two times in fourth grade, and then I moved in sixth grade. And it was difficult being the new person at a new school And I do remember things like my mom taking me door to door and knocking on doors and saying, this is my daughter and she doesn't have a friend, and we're new in the neighborhood, and do you have any kids that she can play with? So that was the challenging part. There was a lot of love in my home, and we all, we lived I was never hungry. I was never, it was a nice growing up, but it was difficult for me with my shyness, with the moving. And then when my parents did separate and get back together and then finally divorce, that was very challenging. I was very close to my father, and then he wouldn't be around as much. And for a short period of probably a year, we lived across the country from my father, and I was 9 years old. So it was really challenging. And I found even then I enjoyed writing about what I was feeling. So I didn't know it was called journaling, but that's what I was doing at the time. I also would go for walks or even a run when I was frustrated, because I only had one parent. It's difficult when you're a single mom. So my mother was under a lot of stress and I was missing my dad. And so we would fight and argue at times. And unfortunately, I would, as a kid growing up, you take things out on the parent who's there with you. So it was challenging for her and I. And, you know, I found a lot of different outlets for my venting, and again, journaling, reading. I was very into reading, and I got into reading all about health. I was really interested in anatomy and health magazines. So from a very young age, I was very interested in how to stay healthy, both mind and body. I remember
Mm.
I was one of the first people within my friend group who was like, we need to wear SPF 7. That was the only thing that was out at the time, because we're going to get burnt because the ozone's, going away. And they'd be like, what are you, from Mars? What do you mean the ozone? And, but I was reading, I was voraciously reading. And, and I also have to say, again, we talk about how important our friend connection, our connections with people. And when I was struggling with my family issues, my friends were always a huge, important part of my life. They were my extended family. I would go over to their house and hang out, and it was a haven away from a lot of times some of the things that were going on that I couldn't control as a child. So it's interesting now when I look back at all the things, the tools that I used that I didn't necessarily know were those things that were helping me, get through it and become more resilient. So, I don't regret anything that happened from those times because I am who I am because of those challenges. So, those were the kinds of things that I dealt with. And then as I chose a career, in the 80s, it was about making money. And so as much as I knew that I liked teaching, and I was actually tutoring when I was a teenager as well to make extra money, and I really enjoyed it. But, most people, when you said you were going to go to school to be a teacher, they were like, well, you're not going to make any money. So, why do you want to be a teacher? So my dad wanted me to be an accountant. And I said, I don't think I want to be an accountant, but I think I can do business. And marketing is about the psychology of business, which I found psychology and sociology very interesting. So when I went, I was fortunate again, I went to a high school where it wasn't about if you were going to college, it was where were you going to college. So I was going to go to college. The question was where. And I was fortunate too that my dad was able to like go to things and tell me, hey, you can go, even though we don't have that much money, you can still go and we'll figure it out, which was really important. So then went into, that was my choice for business marketing. And, I did the fashion thing because that was also business. And to be honest, what happened with fashion was I really got turned off by the materialism of the whole thing. I didn't like the idea of fashion changing so quickly and the wastefulness of clothing and the way we were just pumping fashions out. And I got turned off to the industry. So as I was working for a very generous company that said they would pay for any education, no matter what, I said to myself, hey, I want to have children someday. I'd really like to get into teaching. So maybe this is my opportunity. I can have someone else pay for my master's. So I went back to school and got my master's in education. I commuted from Manhattan and I went to Rutgers University. And my husband did the same. He got his master's as well through his company. So we were really lucky, very fortunate that we worked for companies that were so generous. And then I left to go teach. And that really was, I never looked back. I mean, even when I was in undergraduate school, I also tutored to make money. And I tutored adults with special ed needs. And I loved working with them. I loved writing papers with them and watching them, it was so rewarding to watch them blossom with my help. So I was addicted to it. I loved it.
That is amazing. And Janelle, I see your question, but I will implement that to when we get to the MA program. And everyone feel free to raise your hand if you want to interact with Gina directly. And if not, I would just ask the question away. So you tell us a lot of information, and I love that because when you tell me that you move a lot and how your parents were separated, I was a little worried about you, but it sounded like your mom was very protective. She took care of you, and your dad gave you really, really, really good advice. And of
Mhm.
course, you are very good at self-reliant and also have great support system with your friends. And then, you get to work with good company that support your education. Your husband sounded like such a great man too, having his own master degree. So can you tell us a little bit more on how you overcome all of those challenges and how I guess your husband come into your life and how your journey together, take care of the
Sure.
family and self-development.
I met my husband as a freshman in college. He was from Long Island and I'm from New Jersey. And I actually was friends with him initially. He was dating a friend of mine. And we became friends, him and I, which I think was a great base for us to eventually date because we got to know each other a little bit as friends. I think there was that tension that we found each other attractive from the beginning. But I think each of us was seeing other people. I had a high school sweetheart I had seen for many years, and he was dating people. So the two of us really just became friends. And he was someone who helped me out. I was terrible at computers. And, that's what you had to take as a business major, as a freshman, you had to take a computer course. And back then it was literally punch cards that were just mind boggling to me. That's just not the right side. That's not the side of the brain that I use. I'm more creative. I'm not somebody who's really, I can do math. I was in calculus, but that's not my forte. So he literally got me through that class. I think it was the only class in my whole history of school that I actually got a C in that computer class, but I passed. So anyway, that's how I met my husband. And then it worked out that uh, we started falling in love. It just worked out that way. And I decided to leave my boyfriend, and he decided to kind of settle down a little bit with seeing one person. And it was very difficult. It was very hard to have a relationship in college. There's so many distractions and there's so many other people. And to be in a relationship with just one person in college is very challenging. But we did. And, it worked out. It wasn't perfect. We had some of our challenges, but then we both graduated. He's a year older than me. And we also had some traveling challenges. We lived about an hour and a half from each other. So we used to meet in the city. We both worked in the city in Manhattan. And so we would meet afterward and have dates and, get together on the weekends. And it worked out that we loved each other enough to get married. And then, we had 2 children together. And we've moved several times to different houses, but we've pretty much stayed in New Jersey. We both really like the area. And I've watched him grow and change and become, after working for somebody, open his own business and wealth management and been very successful. He's someone who's very ambitious and keeps very busy, and I'm very proud of him. So we're both two people that I think have very high expectations for what we can accomplish. And I have to say, we've instilled that in our children, and they're both very successful as well. And it's really rewarding, again, to see that we've raised two adults now who are, very independent, and I'm very proud of them. So that bond of having raised two children together, with the ups and downs that come with that, that's not easy being a parent, has really bonded us as well. And, right now he's on a motorcycle trip out west, for his downtime. So, we each take our own personal time, so that we have our own personal life, that we're two entities that choose to be together. And I think we complement each other. We're not just, soulmates who complete each other. We're actually two very complete adults who want to be together and share our lives together. And so we've been married 35 years, I'm happy to say. And, my son's getting married, so I'm very excited about that. And I hope he has a similar journey of happiness and,
Mhm.
Learning to work through some of those rough times. It's not all easy.
Mhm.
It's definitely not easy.
I
But
love that. And I love how your relationship with your husband was built on the foundation of helping each other, from the early day in school. And then it sounded like you really work together to overcome challenges like the long distance. And then, of course, marriage is hard. I'm not gonna,
Mm.
I'm not
You
gonna,
said it, Ben.
yeah, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. As definitely a challenge, but when two people work together, we learn this in happiness study too. The growth of the relationship is determined or can be measured based on how the two work together, how people can rely on each other, and the more that we can confidently rely on our partner, the stronger the relationship will be. So what I am hearing from your story is that you and your husband has been working together since college and you are making it work. And then I love how you gave each other space to do the thing that you love, and you should definitely share your experience with others. I think more people need to hear that. And I feel like you are already doing it with all of your what is it, all of your activism and community involvement. And I wanted to ask if all of that community involvement, did you started that prior to the MA program, or did you do more after the MA program? Like, how does it work? And can you tell us more about those activities?
I always felt very strongly about being involved in the community, and so did my husband. He coached a lot of my kids' teams, and he wanted to be in a job where he could have time to spend with them as they were growing up. It goes so fast. You'll see, Ben. It's like in a blink of an eye, your daughter's going to be, this high. And so if you don't take the time to spend the time with them, you don't get a second chance. It is what it is. And I think I learned a lot of that in my first MA with my master's in education, because a lot of the classes I took focused on younger children and how important the environment was, how important their life was, in their development. And, you miss a stage and you're not there, you're not the one influencing them. So for me as a teacher, I wanted to get involved in the things I knew I had self-confidence in that were involved in their lives. So, Sunday school, I could teach, I could pretty much, if I get to know the topic, I could teach anything. So I taught Sunday school. And then, my daughter, we met people. Girl Scouts just seemed like such a lovely kind of a thing to get involved with. And I love the outdoors and nature. So for me to be camping with my daughter and doing things like that, I mean, Girl Scouts, I learned so much about being outdoors, and she learned to horseback ride, and it was a wonderful experience. So for 7 years, I was a Girl Scout leader. And um, even the activism part, I was involved with, like, a cousin of mine was involved with me when I ran a busload of people for the Million Mom March in Washington for sensible gun laws. My cousin was with me helping me run the whole bus load. So I also felt like I got other people involved with it. I was a PTA president, and probably every one of my friends helped me out, whether it be running in a race or, volunteering for me, me giving, they also gave to me. So it's, again, all those things are so rewarding. When you're in a Girl Scout troop, you develop relationships with these girls, and I watched them grow up and, knew them since they were 5. And then I stopped probably when we were like high school, middle school, end of middle school. So being involved with the community was always really a wonderful thing. And I'm at a stage right now where I left where I raised my children, and I'm about an hour away. And now my decision process is, how do I get involved here as someone who's a little bit more mature? And how do I fit that in? And what do I want to do? I kind of took a break after being a PTA president for many years and being involved with volunteers, because it's challenging. It's not always easy to be with volunteer work. So I took a break from that. And now I want to get into something. I just haven't decided yet what. I mean, a friend of mine, we're talking just recently about, there's an organization in New Jersey that helps those kids who age out of the foster care system, and they're 17, 18 years old, and they don't have a support of a family a lot of times. And how do they get to college, and how do they pay for an apartment? And they need guidance. And, you can't just drop them off at 17. A lot of us support our kids till they're in their 20s. So that's an organization I have my eye on that might be something I want to get involved with, and a bunch of other ideas I have for things I might want to do soon. So that's one of my dilemmas, is figuring out just what the next stage and steps are.
Amazing. Well, I would like to ask the question that Daria McDonald asked in the chat, because I have the same question too. It sounded like
Yeah.
you do a lot of different things: school, family, work, volunteer, and then you have time for like music, going to the concert. So how do you do all of that? Like, what process do you use to make sure you invest in yourself and keep the balance? How do you schedule that? Do you use schedule block of time to pursue your interest? Like, how do you fit all of that in your in your daily activity or your workflow?
Well, you know how Tal talked a lot about that he was an introvert. I'm also definitely an introvert. And so I do need a lot of downtime. So I make sure that I fit that in to my day. I have a certain amount that I feel I need to get accomplished and to move forward and to maintain my homes. And, I have 2 dogs, and seeing family and friends. But first and foremost, I do meditate in the morning before I get up in the morning. And thanks to our masters, I have, I think, a much deeper practice, a much better practice. And not only in the morning, but there are times, again, I think living in the moment and what we've learned about being present gives me so much more energy to do what I want to do. So as long as those moments that I spend with myself, I'm not a morning person. So, everyone here who can attest, I'm not someone that will, I think Jasmine wanted to change this to a morning interview. And I was like, I can do it, but that's really not going to be the best Gina. Like, I know at this stage in my life, I'm not the best at 9 in the morning. So I'm much better at 9 at night. So I said to Jasmine, could we leave it till 9 at night? Because, and past Gina, when I was 25, would have just said to Jasmine, I'll do it. But I think it through now. I know myself, and it's okay. I don't have to be a morning person. I can still be very productive. And I stay up a little later at night, and I'm more productive at night. So I don't beat myself up anymore for not always being what everybody would like me to be, or what I should be for the schedule of most people. And I am healthier because of it, because I understand who I am. I understand my limitations. more than my strengths, I understand my limitations. And I think that's how I am able to accomplish a lot, because I will say no, or I will adjust things. You know, I like to make my appointments after 11 o'clock. If I feel there's going to be too much traffic somewhere, I don't want to waste my time in a car. I would rather be doing stuff. I'm not a big person on the phone, because I'd rather see you in person. I'd rather meet with you and have an experience with you than talk on the phone. So I'm not a big person talking on the phone. So like I've kind of honed in now on who I am and what I kind of need to fuel me. Like I need a dog in my life. Like I just really love them, and they calm me and they make me really happy. So, you know, yes, it's more challenging when we travel a lot, and my husband and I do like to travel a lot, but I don't mind doing that, because it's what important to me is my day-to-day life, not the trips 5 times a year. What's more important is, do I feel good every day? So again, I think it's about getting to know myself and understanding and accepting who I am, and then honoring that. And you know, I'm not perfect at anything, and that's another relief that has really, you know, I used to try to kind of be a perfectionist, and that's just so unrealistic and not really healthy. So
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. Knowing our limitation, I think people don't take that serious enough, even though it is very powerful. Because when we know our limitation, we can get toward it, and that is how we grow, right? Some people they try to do too many things at the same time, and they couldn't get it done, and they miss out that zone
a
where
journey, right? The
yeah,
flow.
the
Yeah.
flow, yeah, so they can grow. I have a really good question from Noel, but I will say that for later. I think that will be more
Okay.
appropriate for the end. And
Okay.
I want to circle back to Chanel question now regarding MA in Happiness Studies. And for those who are joining us today that are not familiar with the spiral model, I just want to tell you quickly that the spiral model consists 5 elements: spiritual well-being, physical well-being, intellectual well-being, relational well-being, and emotional well-being. And Chanel question is, which spiral element did you have the most growth in during your MA in happiness study journey? Which MVIs do you implement the most?
MVIs, little things that I do. I give myself a lot more time now to get places, because invariably I can be someone who tries to fit so much into every last minute that then I'm rushing and I can be late. So one MVI is, if I make an appointment for, you know, say 10 o'clock, or let's say the appointment's 10:15, I put it in my calendar as 10 o'clock. And I have psychologically gotten to the point where, when I look at my calendar, whatever's in my calendar, that's actually the time. I don't say to myself, oh, I have an extra 15 minutes. When I set my alarm clock, you know, I know that it takes me a lot of time to get out of that bed. I love my bed. I love being in bed and sleeping and cozy, and I just really love it. So getting out of bed, I set my alarm 30 minutes before I know I actually have to get out of bed. And I know the process. I want to stretch. I want to do a little meditation. So, you know, that's one of the things I do with time sometimes, are little MVIs that I change to like accommodate that I might take a little bit longer, or just I'm always trying to fit so much in. It's actually a hindrance, you know, it's kind of like an obsession. Oh, yeah, I can do one last load of laundry or something before I leave. And then you know, you're always going to hit traffic. So what other MVIs do I do that I can think of? I walk everywhere. I park the furthest away, usually where I park, so that I'm going to get the exercise. I don't take elevators or escalators. I take stairs. I like to go grocery shopping and carrying things because that's my weightlifting. I try to get my exercise through lifestyle. So I find those are good things that I utilize to keep myself active and, fit just by reaching up things high instead of getting a step stool or stuff like that with physical exercise. I do a lot of different MVIs. I can't think of anything
Well,
else.
you
What are some of
really,
the ones you use, Ben? What do you
you,
like? Remind
uh,
me of some MVIs because I'm drawing a blank.
um, I like to do the 7 minute workout challenge, and just like you, I try to find opportunity to move a little bit more. I don't look for the furthest point to park my car, but I don't mind like parking a little bit farther. I know some people, like some of my friends, they always wait to get into that like closest parking as possible. So
Right.
I don't do that anymore. So I love that. And um, Chanel always also asks a question that I am interested in knowing as well is
Sure.
which spire element did you have the most growth during the MA in happiness study journey?
That's a great question. Really good question. My knee-jerk reaction was going to say intellectual because I feel like a lot of my intellectual things were dormant from not using that part of my brain for so many years. But I think the relationship part of Spire, I grew to understand myself better and others better. And therefore, I think it affected more of my life in how I related to other people, which, as we all know, is the connections are so important. So I'm going to say that relational really I grew the most, and including the relationship with myself. I feel like I came out understanding and honoring more of myself and human nature in general. And I feel like through what we learned, understanding the commonalities that we all have as humans, connected me even more to everybody else. Like I always understood that term Ubuntu that we talked about. I had known that term from years ago. Oprah brought it up on a show and I was like, what does that mean? That's so cool. Like we are all interconnected. And so I think I'm going to say relational was the most growth that I had in the course in the program. Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
That was a
I can
great question.
totally relate
Yeah.
can relate to that because just like I'm an introvert kind of person. Some people might not think so, but I like a lot of time to myself. And prior to the program, I kind of I like people, but at the same time, I was somewhat afraid of people because I see there are situations where people do terrible things,
Complicated.
and people, yeah, very complicated. But I realized that relational well-being is so important, and you pretty much demonstrate that through your life story, right? You get support from
Mhm.
family, from friends, from your company. Definitely more friends that you go to concert with, even the relationship with your pet. Oh, how many pet dogs do you have?
I have two dogs.
Two.
Yeah, I have two. Yeah, I'd probably have more, but my husband's not wanting more than that. But for me, two's great. It's wonderful. Yeah, it is. And
Yeah.
the other thing I want to say too with that relational is, and you'll experience this with your daughter, it's also really nice that as your children get older, they're a form of support for me. Like, one of the nicest things was when I graduated in May that my kids were there and, my daughter had made a sign and, those kinds of things that your children then become not somebody that you're raising and supporting, they're supporting you, and I've done many triathlons with my daughter and we were doing a few of them and then she went to college. And one time I went to it was my first mini triathlon by myself. And she surprised me. Like I was just running and all of a sudden I see a sign and she's there. So it's that kind of support that you're just like, you've now raised adults who are supporting you, which is wonderful. You know, my son lives next door to me and he's been so helpful and supportive of, you know, our needs. And, so it's wonderful as you get older and your children become a part of that support network. And my niece helps me out a lot now. She's in her 20s. So, it's wonderful to see how in different life stages, how different people support you.
All right. Well, my daughter is my teacher, and I'm sure as she grow enough, she will help me a bunch. She helping me right now. I feel like
I'm
I'm
sure.
a lot more mature, during the process of learning to take care of her. And I thought I know how to love, but when she was born, I realized I didn't know anything about it because it wasn't unconditional like the love that I had for her. And I learned to have more compassion, more forgiving, because obviously, when baby cry and have they're
Patience.
demanding, you
Yeah.
have to be patient, a
Yeah.
lot of love. So I'm very excited to experience what you said just now about continuing watching and learning from our children. Um,
I was shocked, to be honest with you. I was in a group with Jasmine. I didn't even know she was pregnant. I had no idea. It was
mhm.
so fun and amazing when you guys had her because I really had no idea that Jasmine was even pregnant. And then I didn't even know she was married to you in the beginning either, which was really nice. It's
Yeah.
really impressive that you guys did that together. Really beautiful thing.
Yep, it is a blessing. We've learned a lot. We've been dating for a while, but the thought of starting a family, a little bit scary. And then we
Mm.
saw Giovanni and his baby, little Jojo,
Yeah.
and
Oh, it
we
was
were
so
like, we
special.
can do that. We can take
Oh.
care of baby and finish this course, this program. And looking back, is it was very rewarding because we started the program and we was only dating. We knew that we are going to
Oh, I
start a
didn't realize
family,
that.
but
Okay.
we were just dating. So after the first class, we decided to get married, and then Bella Luna come very quickly after that. So we started out single, kind of. And then during the program, we got married. And
Wow.
then when we graduated, little Bella Luna was there to walk
Oh my
across the
gosh,
stage with us.
you're a happiness family. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh my God. All of us at graduation were so those moments with Bella at the graduation were amazing. That was so special. Yeah.
yeah, it was such a blessing to experience that, and it wasn't planned or anything. It just happened to be like that. And I often joke with Jasmine that baby Bella Luna is pretty much a happiness study baby
She
because she
is.
was with us in the very beginning. And
Maybe
then,
Tal will give her an honorary degree because she was there.
yeah, my friend make a joke that Bella Luna had two master degree in happiness study because she got to walk twice. And it was definitely a memory that I treasure. So,
Absolutely.
but I have a question for you. Like hearing your story, I feel like you has already applied the knowledge that we've learned from the MA in Happiness Study program, even prior to taking it. Was it a coincidence? Like, how did that happen? And how did you implement or maybe even improve on the practices that brought you success after you take the MA?
I think what happened was in my early 20s, when I was in undergraduate, I struggled a bit with trying to find myself and figure out the world. And I read a lot of things that I think maybe Tal has even read. One of my favorite authors was Leo Buscaglia, who wrote about love and happiness. I read M. Scott Peck, who wrote about evil in the world and love in the world. And so as a young person, I was very curious about well-being, both mentally and physically. So I read a lot and I came to discover a lot about myself, and self-love was one of the big topics as a 22-year-old. And I realized I can't love anyone else really honestly or truthfully until I love myself. And so I was fortunate to put some of those pieces together through the kinds of things I was reading. And so, you know, a lot of that stuff, a lot of that health stuff taught me, you need sleep. I mean, I knew in my 20s I needed sleep. I was never one of those people who was like addicted to caffeine. I was never one of those people who pulled all-nighters. I was never one of those people who overdid it with obsessing over exercise. I did it in moderation. Most things, my motto was in moderation. And I also really came to understand then, which I realized in the program we talked about so much, was I was struggling with living an authentic life. I was struggling as a young woman in the 80s, trying to be myself. You could not be a woman in the 80s and say what you wanted to say. You could not be a woman in the 80s and do whatever you wanted to do. There were limitations back then, even in the 80s. And there was sexual harassment everywhere. It was just a part of being a woman in the 80s. And we accepted a lot of it that we shouldn't have, but we did. And because we wanted to fit in, we wanted to be nice, we wanted to be quiet at times. We were taught to be more passive, and I wasn't that kind of personality. So I struggled with fitting in wanting to be authentic, but yet did that fit into the world? Was I going to be successful if I was myself when myself was too much for what society was saying to a girl or a young woman or a young lady then? So I went through a lot of those things in my early 20s. And that's why I think our marriage ended up being successful, because I was much more mature and I got married young at 23, but I was mature enough to understand what I was looking for as far as the values I wanted in another person to share my life with. And that was most important. We could have easily evolved in different ways and it maybe wouldn't have worked out, but a lot of what I saw in my husband was the values that I believed in. And then I think we were both very authentic with each other. There wasn't like, I think, our first year of marriage was very difficult back then. You didn't live with the person for a year or whatever. And I strongly believe in that now, that I think you get to know somebody by living with them. So our first year of marriage, we struggled. It was very hard, but we persevered through that and, made through that first year. So I think the reason why I had a lot when I went into this MA program prior was because I did a lot of the work in my early 20s. And so this program just seemed to just make everything much clearer and solidify for me again 30 years later, 40 years later, that these things that were tenets that I was learning about in my 20s, they're still the same thing. Just like you and I learned that Socrates and everybody else has been talking about Lao Tzu since the beginning of time. These things aren't really very different. The needs we have to be loved, to be understood. So I had a good base. So I think I was just really fortunate in that I had a really good base of knowledge. And, I have to thank my parents for the self-confidence I had to learn and read and put myself out there. They were proud of me. They showed it. They gave me love. There was a lot of good stuff that they built up my personality to be able to be authentic. And so I think that has helped my journey in my whole life, that it's really easy to tell the truth. It's really easy to be you. It's hard to live a lie. It's harder to try to change yourself to fit in and struggle with that every single day. And so I feel really bad for people that haven't gotten to a point where they can, be honest with themselves and be honest with everybody in their lives, because that's a terrible struggle to have to live with.
Wow, that is so powerful. And I did not know that it is that challenging in the 80s until I learned more about American history because, I was born and raised in Vietnam. So I always thought that the US is like the most free, country of the entire world. But looking back in history, there's definitely the needs for equality in the 80s and even today. And
Yes.
you lived through that. And was that the inspiration for you to get involved more into activism? Can you tell us
Yes.
more about that?
Yes. I went to hear a speaker at my girlfriend went to Rutgers University, and there was a speaker, a woman, who was speaking about equal rights, and she totally stimulated my interest in that. And I've always been somebody who, in high school and middle school, I always remember wanting to stick up for those people that couldn't stick up for themselves. Again, when I went to school, special ed children were not treated the same the way they are today. Special ed children were separate. They weren't talked about. What we called them weren't nice names that people called them. And I always felt a need to stick up for those people because it's not right. I never liked that they were making fun of people. I never liked I remember there was one boy in high school. Everyone always used to give him what we called book jobs, push down his books, and his papers would go all over, and the poor kid would have to pick everything up, and I'd be the one helping him pick them all up and yelling at the other kids. I always I had a self-righteous drive in me. I don't know where that came from. I have no idea. I really don't know where that came from. I just always felt, I think a lot of the movies I watched growing up, there were things that I just felt like there should be a certain decorum where people all have the same rights. I was somebody who, I remember this as a memory. When I was in kindergarten, there was a boy who happened to be Black, and I loved playing with him. And I remember my mother saying to me that other moms were saying I shouldn't play with him because of the color of his skin. And I remember thinking as a 6-year-old, that is wrong. I'm like, that is not right. I love him. He's a good person. I want to play with him. Why can't I play with him, Mom? Well, she couldn't even explain it. There was no explanation. The same reason why I couldn't wear pants for my class picture when I was in first, second, third grade. I don't want to wear a dress. I want to wear pants in my picture. But every girl had to wear a dress for the class picture when we were in kindergarten, first, second grade. So you could see my picture now in kindergarten and first grade. I'm wearing pants, and God bless my mother for putting up with my stubborn attitude. I was like, there's no reason why I can't wear pants. So anyway, I lost track of the question, but
Oh no, you
the
answer is
the
perfectly.
activism, I mean, the
Activism. Yep.
activism came from that, you know what I mean? I really, as a woman, there are so many causes. So in college, at the time I went to a pro-choice rally. And then when I had children, to think that they weren't safe with gun violence just was not acceptable. And that's one thing that I find really heartbreaking today in the United States, that we've gone backwards with gun safety. For me to have been marching on Washington in the early 90s and now have us gone backwards, it's very upsetting to me. It's just really heartbreaking to me that people aren't safe going to the movie theater or a concert, or, that children at school have to worry about. I've had to do those active shooter exercises, and that's just not acceptable in a learning institution. That's not healthy for me as a teacher or those students to be putting the shades down and having to do active shooter exercises. We need to take control over and have sensible gun laws. So yeah, that activist, just, I think it was always myself just wanting
Mm,
equal rights for everybody. And
I agree. And they say that freedom is not free, meaning that somebody had to pay a price for it or we have to fight for it. And I I do believe that activism is important so that we can help people be more conscious about it. And this might be something very small, but that can be the catalyst to help make it happen, to at least get people to consider it or talk about it. So I think that is very important. And my next question is, what advice would you give to someone who want to pursue a career in education or become more involved in activism? Because education in itself is pretty much an activist movement to, better people, better society in general. So again, what advice would you give to someone who want to pursue a career in education or become more involved in activism?
well, I think education, first of all, you have to have a lot of patience, not only just with the age group that you choose to teach, but you have to have a lot of patience for parents. It's very challenging for teachers today. So patience, and I think you have to love it because if you don't love it, I don't really know how you can be good at it, because it is so challenging. It is draining. These teachers are standing and playing, and even in higher education, I remember dealing with students I had, with real serious problems while they're trying to take a course, real serious financial problems, home problems. So I think to go into education, I think you have to really love being connected to other people and feel good about what you want to impart to them. So, I think people get to know their personalities and how much patience they have in general. And so I think, and it's easy enough to do that in baby steps. Go volunteer first, or do you like being in school? Like, I remember I loved school all the time. My favorite time of year is the fall because it was back to school. I love the smell of everything in the fall and my new books and getting new clothes. And so I loved learning. So I think most teachers probably love learning, and it doesn't matter what age group you go to. It's so rewarding when you know that you have something that you can share with others. So I would say get to know yourself first and understand, just the strengths we've talked about so many times in school, how important getting to know your strengths are. So I would be aware of that, because you're going to get tested in a school atmosphere and an education atmosphere. And as far as activism, I kind of have always gone by that Gandhi saying that if you're not a part of the solution, you're a part of the problem. So I try not to complain too much when I know I haven't really done much to make the situation better. And I think we just all need to take responsibility for ourselves. And, activism can get very dicey nowadays. I have to say, my daughter did go to a march that I wasn't able to attend when, I think it was a women's march on DC. And it can get dicey. It can get, crowded. It can get dangerous. And so I think you have to be smart and, know what you're getting into, and safe, and, and understand the laws, because activism can be dicey. I mean, and then you can do the smallest thing to be active, volunteer in schools, go, be on the board of ed. There's definitely ways that you can try to get more active. I mean, I'm struggling right now as a mature woman to decide how active and how do I get involved with our current election, it's challenging to know where you want to help and where is your strengths best utilized. So I think it takes some time to do it thoughtfully, whether you're going to go into a career in education or try to be someone who's a little more involved and active. I think you have to take the time to really think it through and ask questions.
Wow, so much wisdom. Thank you so much, Gina.
Thanks, Ben. That
And
means a
now
lot coming from you.
I really learned a lot, everyone. And we have about 20 minutes left. So if you want
Okay.
to interact with Gina, ask a question, I think it's probably best if you can raise your hand and interact with Gina. But I really want to ask this one question from Noel earlier. So yeah, everyone, if you have any questions, feel free to raise your hand. I will call on your name after this question. I really like this question, by the way, Noel. Noel asked, any advice or insights which you offer to the younger Gina?
Oh, nice. So just so you get the background, that's my daughter, Noelle, and she's 30. Great question. The advice I would probably give Gina back then, and what I still struggle with today, is deep breaths, putting things into perspective. It's, most things are the little things. Don't sweat the small stuff. And I think I would have said to myself, learn to not be so much of a people pleaser. I think that held me back a lot in portions of my life where I wanted to make other people happy and do the right thing, whether it was societally or family, or I was afraid parts of the times in my life to be someone who didn't do what was expected. So I think I would have given her some advice. Although I don't feel like I missed anything. I didn't feel like I missed out on, my journey was propelled by my gradual maturity, and my maturity, I needed all those experiences to really get to where I became more self-confident and more willing to be myself 100% and try things and do things a little bit more. So I think I would have just told her to breathe a little bit more and meditate. I didn't meditate much back then. I think I exercised, but I didn't really meditate as much as I probably could have. And we know now how important that is, to look inward. And
Yes. So
Miss
from
Jasmine.
our from our conversation from the beginning until now, I think the biggest takeaway that I got from our conversation is very much related to the second relational principle R2, which stated that the foundation of healthy relationship with others is a healthy relationship with oneself. And I think your story and your advice definitely highlight this point. And I think this is so important. This is one of the biggest takeaway for me as well, because I always put other before myself. And then I realized that if I can't take care of myself, that I cannot take care of others. And I think there's a quote from Mother Teresa saying that if everyone can just take care of their backyard, then the world would be so clean and beautiful. And I believe in that. So what do you think about that? Like
Well, I would
people talk
imagine for
about,
you, I'm sure it was in your culture. Did you find more pressure with following the cultural expectations for you as a member of your society? I mean, did you feel that in Vietnam? Was there kind of a path that you were supposed to take?
I really don't know, but I feel like I have this belief that everyone is good, everyone have good intention. And I feel like all of the friends that I have talked to when I was younger until even now, everyone wants to do something great for the world, but then they don't take care of themselves. And I think
Yeah.
if everyone can just take care of themselves and better themselves, then that's it. Problem solved. You
Yeah,
know?
one of the other things I've said a lot and to my kids and to people in my life is if everybody does a little, nobody has to do a lot. And if everybody takes responsibility for who they are and is living an authentic life and working on their own joy and happiness, then each of us are going to make the world a better place. It can be one person at a time. I truly believe that. I mean, I try not to get too overwhelmed, with everything that's going on today. It's really hard sometimes. You get frustrated, but I really think and again, I don't know what's been going on that sometimes people want to blame everybody else for their own lives and what they didn't get and and that sort of thing. I think taking responsibility for your own life and your own choices. You may not have been given all the tools, and that's unfortunate. Not all of us are fortunate to have love at a young age or support. But hopefully you have learned somewhere that you need to take responsibility for yourself. And, I agree with you, Ben. I just think that will make the world a better place. And, you know, charity starts within the home. My husband has said many times. You have to worry about your own little world first, and then go out a little bit, and then go out a little bit, and then go out a little bit. And as I've seen where my life has given me a little bit more time, it might be that is when I add a dog because I have the patience and the time and the energy. But there's plenty of times that I don't have the time or energy or patience to bring in a new dog, and go through that whole process of getting them to be more comfortable and happy. And, so people need to become more aware and more responsible, right? So
Mhm.
it's not easy.
Well, I think dogs are awesome. They if I have to give like the definition of happiness, I will point to the dog and I
Yeah,
would say that is the definition of
right.
happiness because they're happy all the time and they have so much love. They're always smiling and happy to see you and
It's pretty unconditional. It really is.
unconditional,
It
definitely.
is. It is. It's pretty unconditional. They
Um,
they they forget very easily anything that's bad that's happens, and they tend to live in the moment, which is really. So I did one of my final projects during school on pets and how they enhance our lives and make us happier. And there was a lot of research. I mean, it really is something that's very real and how much they help us. So I'm sure my blood pressure is lower because I have two dogs. So
yeah, I believe there's a lot of different research stating that having a pet in your life can help you like just do better overall, lower blood pressure, happier, less stress. But before we get sidetracked, and I
sure.
know our time are limited,
Yep.
there's this one question come up in my mind I really want to ask you because I I I know that and I believe that your story is very, very special and it is very much related to happiness study and happiness revolution. So, with your background in education, with your background in activism, and now that you have graduated from the MA program, you know of the happiness revolution. Uh, what is the question should I ask? Like, how do you think about the happiness revolution, and what can we do if you were to give an advice on the movement? What should we do to spread happiness? How can we make the world a happier place if you were to give one advice? I know it's
One
a big
advice.
question.
One advice.
Yeah.
Love yourself. Love yourself.
Mhm.
A lot comes from that. If you can love yourself, you're going to be happier to everybody else, and it's going to steamroll and steamroll and steamroll. And yeah,
I think that is an amazing question.
have compassion for
I mean,
yourself first, and then you're going to be more compassionate with other people. And
mhm.
you're going to set an example for your children and the people who are around you, what it looks like to be compassionate and take care of yourself. And then you'll show them how they can be better and happier. And, you know, I haven't decided yet, Ben, what I'm going to do next to make more of a footprint with my happiness background. So for me, that's the challenging part right now, is to figure out, am I going to write a book? Am I going to teach at a university? Am I going to just start doing little things with friends and family, little workshops, or just continue as I've been doing? So it's so important, but yet I'm not there yet. I'm still processing what I know and what I think might be the next steps to the journey and finding my strengths. And
I think you are already there, and I love your advice. Love yourself. I think it is an element that we all need to cultivate, and we definitely need to remind ourselves and each other to love ourselves. And once we can do that, we can have more compassion with other. And when we can do well for ourselves, oftentimes we don't even have to say a word. People can just
right,
look at us and they
our
will
energy.
see it. They will see our energy. They will see the success that we have in life. And success here is not just your career or money, but whole being, happiness as whole being. And by having that success, I'm sure it will inspire other to live a meaningful life as as you do and many people do. And I think just something as simple as that can have a huge effect, and something small, but it can
Butterfly, right? The
butterfly
butterfly
out,
effect.
snowball effect out. And I think that is the key. I think something so simple, but I think that is so effective. And that's remind me of the concept of the happier center that Dr. Talban Shaw
Mm-hmm.
mentioned. It doesn't have to be a physical location. You are a happier center. We are many, many happier center that making a difference. And I'm so glad that I have all of you in this journey. I would like to take a moment to thank you so much, to appreciate each and everyone who is present in this Zoom, and for those who will re-listen to this program. And personally, I have learned so much from you, Gina, your story, and I appreciate you, Noel, for being here, supporting your mom, and for your beautiful question. And last question before we go, this is like a ritual that we do now. The question that we ask everyone here, all of our special guests, is that if you can be a host of WholeBeing Journey and you get to invite any of our students in the first ever MA in Happiness Study, who would you like to interview? Who would you like to have that conversation with?
Hmm. I had someone in my mind today, and now I'm blanking out on because you've already had a few of the people that I was in groups with.
We can invite them back in later in the future. So,
No, I can visualize her in my mind, but I'm not blanking out on the name. Can I get back to you on that one?
sure, sure, no,
Can I
definitely.
look in my yearbook? I should have had my yearbook here to look. Because
Um,
I know who I want to who I do have someone in
mhm,
mind. But there were so many amazing people. I
right.
mean, if you wanted another Jersey girl, you could do Julianne, who's in New Jersey, and
Yep. Yeah, there are so many
Jen,
amazing classmates.
right? You already had Chanel, right?
Yep, Chanel was
Yeah.
here.
But Jim is,
Jim, definitely
yes,
an interesting
definitely.
guy.
I mean, he's got so much going on. I mean, there's a lot of good people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Victoria, Whitney,
Yeah, I'm
so many
actually, what I
other
wanted to
people.
mention is, so Victoria and I are trying to get together to start a New Jersey chapter. So Victoria, definitely. And I'm also in a group with Shani trying to work on happiness and education. And I know you had Shani already. So yeah, but thank you so much for having me and for doing this. It really is a pleasure. And it's wonderful that we can get to know each other better. And
Excellent. And I think the journey girls, the journey chapter will be very, very important because we are going to have graduation from Jersey at Centenary University pretty much every year eventually. So I'm sure we will be able to get together and
I look
me and
forward to
Jasmine
it.
and Bella, we're gonna try to make it, to go there every year. So I will
Good.
see you more often. Definitely.
Great. Yeah.
All right.
Thanks again.
So before we go, I'd like to play you a song, and this is something that I make and love about happiness studies. So let's enjoy that as we are saying goodbye. And once again, thank you so much for being our special guest today, Gina, and thank you everyone who are joining us in today um program. And I will see you next time. Have a wonderful day.
Sunshine in my sight, hoping in my mind, happiness we're gonna find. Spiritual, touching the sky, physical in each stride. Intellectual, we rise, relational, we vibe. Feel the joy inside you glowing, whole being now we're flowing. Together we are showing, emotional tides are growing. Happiness in every beat, whole person feel complete. Spark lifts us from our feet. In this rhythm we meet. Echoes in the skies, rhythmic heartbeats synchronized. Ethereal love that flies. Feel the joy inside you glowing, whole being now we're flowing. Together we are showing, emotional tides are growing. Happiness in every beat, whole person feel complete. Spark lifts us from our feet. In this rhythm